So, in this segment, we're going to be talking about not Dennis Skinner, but we're going to be citing something Dennis Skinner said a few years ago, 2016.
Dodgy Dave.
Dodgy Dave. Love it. So, we'll be talking about David Cameron, aka Dodgy Dave. Got a lot to talk about when it comes to this man. So what has happened is David Cameron went to seek funds for this company called Greensill, which he worked for. Greensill Capital is now bankrupt, from what I've read, and it doesn't exist as a company. So what David Cameron did was he tried to get them loans from the government, the COVID loans, and the government said no. So what he did was he texted Rishi Sunak and other ministers in order to get the loans, which is incredibly dodgy. He bypassed the formal means of the formal channels of talking to ministers in order to try and personally contact them. He personally contacted Rishi Sunak's phone in order to get a contract for this company because David Cameron was going to make a lot of money from Greensill Capital. That's the reason why he did it. And he talks about all of these altruistic reasons of, I genuinely care about other people, when he's the one that implemented austerity. He's the one that called for the referendum. He's the one that's set fire to. He's one of the players that set fire to Northern Ireland. That's Dodgy Dave. So we go to Dodgy Dave now. Dodgy Dave has said he should have contacted the government through only the most formal channels when lobbying for a financial firm. So he's mad he got caught, and Sunak has leaked some of the text messages. Sorry, not leaked. He's put some of the text messages out there to say what happened, because Sunak doesn't want to get tarred with this. But his hands have been tainted already, because he should have told David Cameron to go through the formal channels if he's seeking a loan. He shouldn't have replied to him. He shouldn't have said, my team will do their best to bypass or try to get around the rules. He should not have said that. What he should have said is go through the formal channels or get lost. So the former Prime Minister has faced criticism for contacting ministers on behalf of Greensill Capital. In his first statement on the issue, he said he should have left no room for misinterpretation. Fam, we're not misinterpreting anything. We know exactly what you did. But Cameron reiterated he broken no codes of conduct or government rules on lobbying. Maybe he didn't break the rules, but what he has done is deeply immoral. It was revealed earlier that Health Secretary Matt Hancock met Cameron and financier Lex Greensill for a private drink in 2019 to discuss a new payment scheme for the NHS. And I think he actually got that contract, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the video. So, an ally of Matt Hancock said he acted entirely the correct way. Like, bruv, you should not be going for a drink to talk to anyone who is seeking a contract from the government. They should go through the formal channels. If they are unable to go through the formal channels, what that tells you is their bid is not good enough. That's what that should tell you, Matt Hancock, you absolute moron. After the meeting is the latest in a series of Sunday Times disclosures about Sunak's lobbying work since leaving office. Cameron's lobbying work since leaving office, Sunak, whom he texted among the minister's contacts. So this guy was talking to a lot of people in order to get help for this company, Greensill Capital. So for 3 weeks, this is from Chris Mason, for 3 weeks the headlines kept coming, for 3 weeks Cameron said nothing, and now this. The former Prime Minister admits he made a judgment call. Forget the rules, this is about the sniff test. How bad does it smell? It smells pretty bad right now, because not many companies who needed help with their businesses could have contacted ministers directly for COVID loans. And if that's not available to everyone, no one should have access to it. You should have to go through the formal channels, regardless of who you are, former Prime Minister or not. And it boils down to this. He acknowledged texting and ringing the Chancellor. He's calling him as well. Ringing the Chancellor and going for a private drink with the Health Secretary as part of his paid work as a lobbyist for a private company was a bad idea. And yet he kept doing it. If he thought in 2019 that meeting Matt Hancock for a drink was a bad idea, why is he calling up Sunak? I'll tell you why, because he's mad he got caught. So the Financial Times and the Sunday Times did great work ferreting out awkward truths. Surely this is something the BBC should be doing as well, no? Chris Mason, no? Is that his name? Yep, Chris Mason. Should the BBC not be doing this stuff as well? Mr. Greensill, an Australian, worked as an unpaid advisor to Mr. Cameron's government, which makes it look even worse. And the former Prime Minister went on to be employed by this company in 2018 after 2 years of leaving Downing Street, because the rules are within 2 years you can't work within certain industries. Ultimately, the outcome of the decision I encouraged about how Greensill's proposal might be included in the government's COVID corporate financing facility initiative and help in the wake of coronavirus crisis was what not taken up. So this company was so bad, right? They couldn't get a loan from the government. When the government was just handing out money left, right and centre, this man could not get a loan. That's how bad his proposal was. He goes, so I complied with the rules and my interventions did nothing to lead a change in the government's approach. But you still tried it though. You still tried it. Attempted murder is still a criminal offence. Just because you weren't successful in it doesn't mean that you weren't guilty of something. So what a stupid argument Cameron's making here. As a former Prime Minister, I accept that communications with the government need to be done through only the most formal channels. So why didn't you do it then? You're mad you got caught. Cameron asked if added that he worked for Greensill Capital in the belief that he would be a material benefit to the UK at a challenging time. No, mate, you went there because they offered you money. They offered you peas. Like, get out of here. So the company recently collapsed, lost 440 jobs. He goes, he feels sorry for those desperately affected, but he doesn't feel sorry for the people who had been the victims of austerity. Sick one, bro. Cameron, who was at Downing Street, is reported to have told friends he's set to earn as much as £60 million from shareholdings in Greensill Capital, although this has been disputed. So this man obviously lobbied for this company for money. He didn't care about their intentions. David Cameron has no moral compass. Like, he's a massive fraud. What a joke. What an absolute joke this man is. We go on to say Cameron's friend said about the situation that David Cameron should have sent a formal letter asking for the financial loans, according to the Financial Times. On Thursday, the Chancellor published 2 letters of his text replies to David Cameron saying the request he had made would require a change to the system in place, but that he had pushed his team to explore an alternative. So Rishi Sunak told him that unless we change the rules, we can't help you, but I'll try and find a way around it. That's what he was told. A source close to Sunak said the former Prime Minister had messaged the Chancellor multiple times on his personal phone and that he had chosen to publish the messages in order to prove beyond doubt there was no wrongdoing. What he's saying is, brother, I didn't do anything. I told the brother I'd help him out, but the rules are the rules. I can't circumvent the rules. What's my name? Is my name Boris Johnson? The rules are the rules, bro. I didn't do anything wrong. My name is Dishi Rishi. I'm a man of integrity. That's what he's saying. Anneliese Dodd says the messages raise very serious questions about whether the Chancellor may have broken the ministerial code. I don't know if he has done anything wrong, but it's clear he's trying to wash his hands of this. Gordon Brown said that the former Prime Minister should not be doing this sort of thing, saying that former Prime Ministers must never lobby the government for commercial purposes. Under the current guidelines, senior civil servants and ministers are banned from lobbying for 2 years after they leave government, a rule Cameron followed. So that's why he went straight in at 2018 to work for Greensill Capital. But Gordon Brown said Prime Ministers must never be lobbying for commercial purposes. Current Prime Ministers should not be entering such lobbying. They shouldn't enter lobbying at all. I think Gordon Brown's avoided things like lobbying jobs and stuff like that. Tony Blair hasn't, though. He also said, Gordon Brown also said, new laws should be passed to stop former ministers lobbying for 5 years. I think ministers shouldn't be able to lobby until there's a change in the party governing the UK. That's the way they should do it. So that way you have no current friends in Parliament right now. Because if you think about it now, Cameron resigned in 2016. So it would have been this year, if there was a 5-year rule, it would have been this year he could have lobbied the government for loans. And he knows a lot of them man's still in government. So, they should do it so that there has to be a complete change in government for any lobbying to be allowed, or just ban lobbying outright by former ministers and prime ministers and civil servants. Because what they do is they just contact their friends and be like, yo, can you help me out? So, it's just embarrassing. Labour is calling for Mr Cameron to appear before Parliament to answer questions about the scandal. I hope he has to. I hope they drag him down there. I want to see what he has to say. It revealed that Cameron texted Sunak and other Treasury ministers over access to government-backed emergency loans. And the question you need to ask yourselves are, if you're a self-employed person or a person that's a freelancer or a person who wasn't eligible for any financial support from the government, right? How does it make you feel that the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, David Cameron, was able to do this, was able to contact the government ministers directly and ask them for help? How does that make you feel? Because you can't do that. At best, you can you'll contact your local MP, but they're of little help. This is just shocking stuff here. And it reported that on Sunday, so this is from a newspaper, the BBC citing a newspaper here, that reported on Sunday that Health Secretary Matt Hancock met Cameron for that private drink, which we have mentioned. This story here is a very important one. For no reason should Matt Hancock be meeting anyone in a private garden for a business meeting. David Cameron, he's talked about, this is his statement, saying that Lex Greensill was an unpaid advisor who, David Cameron barely met. David Cameron also worries about this other company which deal with mining, and they're having issues because of Greensill's bankruptcy. David Cameron saying, I played no role in the decisions to extend credit or the terms on which such credit was extended to GFG or any other customer. So, great thing he didn't get involved, because he would have tanked their support most likely. This scheme had, it's the scheme from the company Greensill, I believe, saying that this scheme had successfully reduced costs to the NHS and enabled many thousands of pharmacies to access early payments and low credit schemes. So, companies that needed loans could have got lower cost credit. He also says that, likewise, well-known international blue-chip companies such as Airbus, Vodafone, Nissan, AstraZeneca, Ford and Oracle contacted and partnered with Greensill. The company had a strong board with experienced figures from business, banking and finance. He also says he was not a director of the company, but we also know that David Cameron was apparently going to make $30 million or £21.8 million profit as an employee from an employee benefit trust registered in Jersey. That's a tax haven for anyone who doesn't know. So he would have made about £21 million and paid very little tax on it. This is also a man whose dad had a share, was also, I think, mentioned in the Panama Papers as well. So Dodgy Dave returns. Dodgy Dave! Anyways, like I was saying, it's a guy, he's such a serpent, honestly. He's such a serpent saying, I wasn't on the board or anything like that, but clearly you're benefiting massively from Greensill. £21.8 million is how much he could have gotten with low tax. It emerged that, we know this already, but again, I'm just going to mention it. As emerged that Sunak told the former Prime Minister he had pushed officials to help David Cameron. Okay, so again, I'm going to ask you guys, the ones who didn't get financial support from the government, what recourse did you have to ask the government for help when the government did not help you? Because if you weren't able to text ministers and people within the Treasury, it does tell you that something dodgy is going on here if you haven't figured that out already. And we go to our final two articles. I think it's two. We've got two left, which is that the government is expected to announce an independent investigation into what's happened. We already know that the government did an independent investigation into racism within the UK, which found no institutional racism, and which a very dodgy report. And even Boris Johnson says, that I don't agree with the report's findings. So it shows you how dodgy the report is. And if it's not a public inquiry, then it's not going to prove anything. What this is a red herring, probably to distract from what's going on in Northern Ireland, to be honest. Harry Cole, he works for The Sun, an independent, and he said an independent figure will carry out the investigation, a decision taken in Whitehall this morning. So unless this is public inquiry, I don't care. This is talking about the software that Greensill actually created, which it does talk about this here, which is that the future of a Greensill subsidiary that provides financial help to NHS nurses impoverished by the COVID pandemic has been thrown into question by its scandal-struck parent company's collapse. So a subsidiary that made this app, a Greensill subsidiary that made this app to help people within certain industries with regards to payment, they're concerned as well. But if it's a good piece of software, hopefully they'll get the funding that they need. So, it says here, like David Cameron at Greensill, former Home Secretary Lord Blunkett pictured was also installed as a paid advisor. So it does tell you that this guy, Lex Greensill's strategy was to get former people that worked within the government. You got a former Home Secretary, a Lord, by the way, in order to lobby on your behalf to get funds for your company and to do other things. The NHS corporate services provider NHS SBS arranged the contract with Greensill and Errand. We don't know how legit this contract is because it's very possible it's the one that got the one that Matt Hancock may have signed off on after the private drink with Lex Greensill. But yeah, a lot of people are concerned. Also, the fact that the people who have gained access to the low-cost credit, surely they wouldn't have to pay it back because Greensill is now liquidated. I don't know, but yeah, let's go back to the beginning and let's actually think about what are the conclusions for this video, which is David Cameron tried to lobby on behalf of a company to get COVID loans to that company. Okay. He spoke to ministers directly via the phone, which is something that the vast majority of members of the public and people in the private sector do not have access to, which is dodgy. He he got Sunak to push Sunak's team in order to see what they could do to help David Cameron. His proposals were that bad that despite the government throwing money at anyone and everyone, he could not get a loan for his business. And finally, there will be an inquiry into David Cameron's actions, but it's not a public inquiry, so most likely the findings are going to be ignored anyways. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.
Dodgy Dave, Dodgy Dave.